This is the Montana Outdoor Podcast, brought to you in part by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. And by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, get ready for more fascinating topics and the most interesting people you will ever find in Montana's great outdoors. We offer new podcasts most every Saturday. You can get a link to these podcasts by going to our website, montanooutdoor.com, or by going to our Facebook page, or just send an email to Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com and say send a link to my email. It's that simple. Now let's head out with your host, Downrigger Dale, and see what's going on in Montana's great outdoors.
Thank you very much, Manny. And as Manny just said, I am Downrigger Dale with the Montana Outdoor Podcast. Thanks so much for all of you joining us. I want to give a special shout out, as I always do, to our active military out there all across the world. You know, it always amazes me how hard all of you men and women work to protect us and, well, a lot of other countries too. And when you get a little time off, a whole bunch of you love to listen to this podcast, and we're honored that you do. Thank you for your service, and get home safe soon. Hope this brings a little home to you. Now, I want to thank all the rest of you too. Love having you all here, and the fact that our podcast continues to grow by leaps and bounds. My goodness, it's so great to have so many new folks here. Be sure and share the podcast whenever you can. We love it when you can hit the old share button no matter where you're listening, whether it's on Spotify or Apple Podcast or Amazon or on and on and on. Or, of course, you can always get us on the montanooutdoor.com. That is our website, and there's a link to the podcast there. Plus, montanooutdoor.com has all kinds of great information about hunting and fishing in Montana. So be sure and check that out. And, of course, our live Saturday morning radio show, which is 6 to 8 Mountain Time. So if you ever want to tune into that, you can tune into it live on 30 great radio stations all across Montana, Facebook Live, and just a ton of other places too. But you can also just go to montanooutdoor.com and click there to listen live, and you can listen live, or you can listen to it later. It's recorded and put up there too. So that gives you all the good stuff there. Now, you know, recently did a podcast with our good friend Don Wilkins over there in Fort Peck. And a lot of you really liked listening about that late fall fishing and also getting a preview of what ice fishing might be like. And Don gave a list of the types of stuff he likes to use, and a lot of you really like that. If you miss that, be sure and check it out. If you do want a copy of that list, you can always email me, Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com. I'm more than happy to send that to you. But I wanted to do some previews of ice fishing in other areas. And one I wanted to for sure take a look at is one that probably gets ice first the most often, and is really just a great winter playground. I mean, this is a special place, and I really hope you folks will go visit sometime. But our guide through it all is going to be Garrett Ostler. Garrett is on the phone with us. Garrett, I really want to thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your very special neck of the woods, because you've got a special place down there in West Yellowstone.
We certainly do. You know, I jokingly say that they named the place wrong. So West Yellowstone is what the proper name is, but I call it Best Yellowstone.
There you go. Best Yellowstone. Well, we're going to learn all about it. There's a lot of activities going on in that. But before we get going too much into that, tell us a bit about yourself, Garrett, so folks get to know you a little better.
Well, I was born and raised down in Utah, in Clearfield, Utah. And my grandfather bought a hotel here in West Yellowstone in 1958. And we, in turn, bought it from our family in 2014. And so along with that, we closed down in October. And I love ice fishing. And I fish every day on the lake. And I was able to get my guide license through Big Sky Fishing Charters. And that they are my outfitter, working for Chris Miskey up there in the flathead and that. And I just fish every day. And if people schedule with me, I take them out on Hebgen Lake and catch trout out here. Very nice trout. Not the big massive ones that you get at Georgetown or Clark or something like that, but they're good, consistent trout, both cutthroat, rainbows, brown trout. Awesome fishery.
Yeah, and trout, of course, is probably the most popular fish in the United States to catch. But the trout that you guys pull out of there are pretty damn impressive. Those rainbows and cutthroats are gorgeous, and I imagine they're pretty tasty too, huh?
Oh, they're just totally awesome if you chunk them up and put them in stir fry or smoke them or just bake them or put them on the Barbie and turn them over once, and they're just really, really firm meat, nice and orange meat because they eat a lot of the crayfish in this lake, and they are just really good, and they're naturally reproducing. They do not stock Hebgen, so these are natural reproducing trout.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's just some great stuff we're going to learn all about with ice fishing, and I know you recently went ice fishing, so we'll talk about that too.
Yep.
But first, talk a bit about the greater West Yellowstone area. Kind of describe that for us, and then let's get into some of the different activities that can be done there throughout the winter.
The greater West Yellowstone area consists of West Yellowstone or the Hebgen Basin, and then also ventures over into Island Park, Idaho, which is just across the Continental Divide, Targhee Pass. And there's many great adventures here. The ATVing is just naturally shut down because of all the snow that we've got. But the snowmobiling is opening on December 2nd in the forest. And you can bring your own snowmobiles or start renting them. They don't rent them until, the trails open officially, but you can hire a guide to go with you, or you can just go on a free ride outside of the park. You can do cross-country skiing. The Rendezvous Trail system here is just really awesome, and they do some Spam Cups and some different cross-country skiing events here. They have biathlons, and they really have a really fantastic groomed trail system here on the Rendezvous Trails. You can go snowshoeing. There's some places down in the canyon, down by Quake Lake on Rescue Point. There's a great snowshoeing trail. It's all well marked, and you'll see wildlife down there. It's right where we're elk hunting right now, and the snow is in great shape down there, probably about 18 inches down there.
Wow, already.
Yeah. And the ice is building on Hebgen a little bit, and on Quake, but these darn 40-degree temperatures keep blowing it off with the wind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, knowing West Yellowstone, though, it won't be long. It's going to be covered up. But as far as the snowmobiling and that, is there enough snow to, you say it gets underway December 2nd. Is there enough snow to get out and snowmobile yet?
I've got friends who are guides, and they're doing some training, and they've gone up to Two Tops and done some trails lightly, again, because the forest isn't officially open. So
right.
They're going out and just making sure things are just right. The groomers, seeing if there's trees across the trail or stuff like that they need to trim before they take the big groomers up. So they'll start grooming the trails here soon. And so, yeah, you can rent the snowmobiles, catch a hotel here and then rent and hire a guide. If you've never snowmobiled before, we get a tremendous amount of people who've never snowmobiled.
Yeah.
They come up here and jump on one of these high-powered machines, and then they end up digging them out all day instead of going with a guide that
right.
can coach them and help them out. And that's, thousands of miles of trail up here, and you can just go all day.
And these are actual, planned snowmobile trails, which is great. So you really do have, like you say, a groomed trail, all that. So for you beginners, it's a pretty easy ride, like you say, once you get it down and learn it well. But then for folks who just snowmobile a lot and that, there's a lot to discover there. Now,
All the major producers of snowmobiles bring their machines here
Yeah.
to take their photos of their new machines and do that. And we do that in February. It's called the snowshoot. And so they bring them all here and do all their photography here in these hills. So when you see something fancy like that going on, you know the snow's worth it.
Yeah.
And the town's worth it.
Yeah, if you've watched any of these snowmobile commercials or gone through their catalogs, their mails, and you see these beautiful pictures, that was probably shot right there, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, for you snowmobilers, this is just paradise. Now, one thing I think folks get a little confused on is being able to go into the park. That's not allowed, is it? You can't really take your snow machine into the park, can you?
Well, actually, now they have a lottery system you have to participate in, and you have to draw a permit from the national park. Then you have to go to some training and have all the safety equipment on as a regular guide would have it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to use eco-certified machines, which are typically the Ski-Doos.
Okay.
And they're 4-stroke machines, and you get to go in the park. In the park, you're strictly restricted to the roads,
right,
under 45 miles an hour, and you can go to Old Faithful or over to the canyon and see those things. And it's just like snowmobiling in a different world in there.
Yeah.
And it is just world class. Or you can, if you're not up to snowmobiling, you can take a snow coach, and there are several different snow coach companies here that will take you, and you go in these vans and stuff that have these monster truck tires on them, and they go in there and they float up on the snow just wonderfully. You're up elevated so you can see the wildlife great, and you'll see everything but bears. And even early in the year and late in the year, you can see bears too as they come out or go into hibernation. But seeing Yellowstone is all commercially controlled by the park to protect the resources and to make sure that people aren't going off trails and getting themselves in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you, seeing Yellowstone Park in the winter, I can't stress enough how incredible that is. It's like a whole different Yellowstone. And you're going to see a Yellowstone Park like you've never seen it before. I think that's cool. And if you want to really kind of have a luxurious ride, those snow coaches they're pretty nice, aren't they?
Yes. And my favorite thing that I've done is, take a snow coach in and rent you some cross country skis. And you go see Old Faithful, and then you take the trail and go all the way down through the geyser system there and come out down by Biscuit Basin where that geyser blew up this year.
Oh, yeah.
And you can go about 3 miles down there. It's all pretty much downhill. So it's just a gradual skate down there. And there's plenty of, trail there and nowhere to go. But it's just magic where you're in there and you can hear the hiss of different geysers going off, and then you'll hear Old Faithful go off, and it's actually quite a roar, and the other geysers going off in the area. It is just magical.
Yeah. Now, are you able to spend the night in Yellowstone at all in the winter?
Yes. Xanterra has different properties at the Snow Lodge and stuff there at Old Faithful. And then up Gardner, of course, you can spend, time up there at the Mammoth Lodge and stuff like that. There are different things offered through Xanterra. Probably the best way to find out about those things is to log on to destinationyellowstone.com. That's our local chamber here. And we put on there all the different snow coaches and different tour companies there. And you can shop from them and do it. They're all reasonably priced when you consider the amount of equipment and support that they're having to do. You get your lunch with you and you're going into the park, and the days are so short during the winter that usually they start around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're usually done about 3 to 4 o'clock because it's going to be dark by 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so it's a fun day.
Yeah. And in the podcast description, when you found this podcast, for those of you listening here, no matter where you went to, you'll find the podcast description. And at the bottom of that description, you'll see it in bold print. It says links. And I'll put a link in there to that site there for West Yellowstone. And so we'll have that link there for you. And I'll put a few other links as well in there, just so if you want to do some snowmobiling or get more information, you can. We're going to take a quick break here, Garrett. And when we come back, I want to talk about ice fishing and the fact that really first ice in Montana most often is in your area. And there's just, for you ice fishermen, there is some fantastic ice fishing in this area. So we're going to check that out with Garrett just right after we talk to our friends here that, make this podcast possible. Stick around and listen to this. My friends at Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer are proud authorized dealers of some of the most highly revered brands in the world, like CM Truck Beds, Diamond C Trailers, and of course, Boss Snowplows. Now, I know some of you may not want to think about this right now, but sorry, we have to face the fact that before we know it, fall will be over and winter will be with us for a long time. Now, last winter, we got off a little easier than in the past years, but this year it will likely be much different. Now, why do I say that? A while back, I did a podcast with Matthew Rosencrans in the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center. He said that his long-term prediction models show that Montana and other areas in the Northwest are in for more precipitation this winter. Could be lots more. Of course, that means snow, and that means driveways, parking lots, and roads will need to be plowed. And of course, that means you'll want a Boss snowplow to get the job done quickly and perfectly every time it snows. And that, my friends, can only mean one thing. You need to talk to Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer right now about a Boss snowplow for your truck, tractor, ATV, or UTV, or whatever you're going to put it on. You need to do this now before they run out of them. You'll be prepared for what is coming because not only will you have the best snowplow in the world that is perfectly designed for what you want to put it on, but the folks at Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer will install it for you so it works the first time and every time. Now, this is the time, my friends, to be ready this winter with the best. A Boss snowplow from Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. Now, if you're in the area, you can just stop by at 5680 Expressway in Missoula, Montana, or you can just go see them at rmtte.com. rmtte.com. Take a look at all the Boss snowplows they have right now, as well as the other equipment like CM truck beds and Diamond C trailers that will also make your life so much easier this winter. Yeah, there's no better place to get ready for winter than Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. Go see them now at rmtte.com. That's rmtte.com. And we are back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. Garrett Ostler's my guest. He is a guide in the West Yellowstone area, knows a tremendous amount about West Yellowstone, as you already have guessed, as listening to this podcast. But his favorite thing to do, and often you'll hear him on Montana Outdoor Radio Show, or often we'll talk about reports we get from Garrett, but he can guide you out on some ice fishing that is going to be probably some of the more unique ice fishing you've done. So let's first talk about, and I'm jealous, man, you have already been out ice fishing, haven't you?
Yeah, I slipped over the hill to Henry's Lake. It had about 3.5 to 4 inches on it. And I caught some really beautiful Yellowstone cutthroats that are in there. That lake is only about 15 feet deep at the deepest. Mm-hmm. And so it caps really early. And I'm sitting here looking out my kitchen window, and I'm looking at Grayling Arm of Hebgen Lake, which has been iced for about 3 weeks. And I can't guide on this part of the lake because I can't access it except for on a Forest Service access. So personally, I'm going out there, and it's just been a little bit sketchy. And so
not quite ready.
Safety's the number one thing here. You know, I want to fish tomorrow, you know. And so you never take chances.
Right. So the place with Henry's Lake, how far away from West Yellowstone is that?
It's about 20 miles to the west and
not
south.
far at all.
Just up and over the hill. And there at the state park, you go in there and just right around the marina area or state park area, that area capped. And it's really skinny water over there. It's only about 7 to 8 feet where we're fishing. And so you only got your line down, 3.5 feet in the water or so. And you got the fish finder running. I bought a new Panoptics and really impressed with it so far. And you can see the fish come in, and it takes your line, and you got to really be careful because you can't set it like a normal set because you have no line out.
Yeah.
You just snap your hook off. And so you hook the fish and you bring it in, and you never even touch your reel. And it's so skinny water in that, but those are sure beautiful fish. I think I sent you a few pictures.
Yes, you did.
Releasing them, and I just let them go over there, and that lake is just a special, special lake.
Yeah, in the article that I'll put this Saturday on MontanaOutdoor.com, I'll put some of those pictures in there so you folks can see what Garrett just caught as well. So when you go over to like Henry's Lake, of course, you got to make sure, because you're going into now yet another state, so you got to get the proper licensing for that. So don't forget to do that, folks. That's easy to forget. You're so used to just going around wherever, but you do cross borders now and then. So
here in this area, you do a lot, and it's so convenient. You can do it right on your phone.
Okay.
And Idaho has a fine system of doing that. And you can do that in Montana, too. And
sure.
So, a lot of times we have our guests log in and do their licensing just as we're going because it's a weather-dependent activity. And so we don't want to buy a license and not be able to use it.
Yeah, that using that phone app for a Montana FWP or for a Idaho fishing game or Wyoming fishing game, those can be real lifesavers. Every year I do this because my first time out in the summer with the captain, I always say, "Oh, I'm going to have my fishing license already," and we'll always be heading out, getting away from Fort Peck Marine, and he'll go, "You got your license, right?" And I always go, "Dang it." And so it works great because you can just get right online and get it done and have it there. So, yeah, that's a lifesaver. I'll put a link to for Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana in there, too, for you folks listening. Awesome. So you can get that. All right, so let's talk a bit about in the West Yellowstone area, what would be, say, the top ice fishing lakes, in your opinion, that you like to hit every year?
Of course, Hebgen.
Sure.
Hebgen has just got so much diversity in it, and that's really good. But just down the street also is Quake Lake. And Quake Lake is difficult to access just because of the steep sides. That lake was formed by an earthquake back in 1959. And so there's all these dead trees still standing in there. And I've learned that you want to fish out in the main channel, not in the trees, if you want to land your fish.
Yeah.
They have enough knowledge to know if they wrap themselves around there, they're just going to decorate the Christmas tree under the water. Mm-hmm. And usually with your lure.
Mm-hmm. So,
that's a good one. Wade Lake is really good too.
And Quake Lake, what's the best place to go to access to get into there in the winter?
They just have some turnouts on the side of the road, and or up by the outlet. There's the visitor center there, and you can park in just the wide spots on the road. It's not really a access parking lot or anything.
Okay.
And you can slip down off the side and just take the minimal gear that you want. It's almost like first ice fishing. You just take your sled to carry your stuff, your auger, your spud, and you go down there and your rods and your limited gear, and you go down there and get on the ice and then go out just beyond where the trees are, because there's still trees underneath you.
Yeah.
And that,
okay.
But you just go out there and find a place and use your electronics to make sure you're not fishing right into the top of a Christmas tree. And I mean, it's amazing when you see the pictures of that down there.
Yeah,
they're still all in there.
I'll have a link to Quake Lake just so you can get a little background on the story of that lake, but also get you some information for those of you listening. Now, what do you usually catch in Quake Lake ice fishing?
Quake Lake, it's commonly cutthroat trout, browns, and rainbows, and a few whitefish, and they're good quality fish. The pressure is so light there that it's just difficult to get on. And so it's just got really good fish in there. When you look on your electronics and stuff on your phone and stuff, it listed as part of the Ennis hatchery system. And that, so all the fish come up in through there to spawn up below Hebgen Lake. And so there's a lot of small fish in there that feed the big fish, and there's some big fish in there. Mm-hmm. And you just have to sort through the rest of them. But, it's really good ice fishing, terribly underutilized, but it's difficult to access.
Yeah.
And, the lakes around here, most of them are difficult except for Hebgen, because you have to snowmobile into them, like Cliff and Wade Lake. You have to snowmobile over to them, mm-hmm. and you can't get to them in the winter.
Mm-hmm. Now, for Quake Lake, what are the typical things you use for bait and lures and things like that?
Yeah, the lures I like to use are jig heads, either the tungsten or the lead heads, and painted like white or orange, and then I put some plastic on behind them. I use a lot of a bait called a zero bait or a frostbite. Frostbite's a real neat new little bait I found, and they have some indestructos, and those things are a 1 inch long bait, but they'll stretch out to 3 inches and won't break. And so if you got something that's hitting light, it won't tear off the back of your plastic and stays on forever. And those are really good. But typical plastic jigs that you would maybe use like for crappie.
Okay.
And then on the hook, I tip it with mealworm or, waxworm. I've been using some salmon eggs and stuff like that on there. Just something to put a little flavor on it. It's one thing to look at the lure. It's another thing to taste the lure in the water. And these fish have really good senses, and they'll smell you out and see you and come and take a bite. And I use anything from 3 inch long lures to, down to a 1/2 inch long lures. So going micro, going larger. And, it varies and depends on the day, and it changes throughout the season. A lot of times I'll use, another favorite of mine is to use spoons. So Castmaster, Swedish Pimple, some of the Daredevils, even a Jake Spinalure is amazingly effective, because you can raise it up and then drop it, and it'll just spin down through the water column, and those trout will come in and just hammer it. And
I was going to ask.
You're using a spoon, it's a good hammer.
Yeah, I was going to ask you as far as the like the spinners and spoons of what your presentation is to get them to do their thing. So you just raise them up and then just let them drop, and they kind of do their usual deal like they would. Huh.
Yeah, and that's always really, really good. And we're tipping them with a piece of bait, and just really small, just enough to entice them in. I've found that the smaller the bait, and even on mealworms, I'll break a mealworm in half and use half of it at a time. They'll hit that commonly more than a full worm.
Okay.
And that, even though those things are only 1 inch long, if you put on the 1/2 inch, I think you double your take rate. And they do that really well. The other thing I do is, because these fish will get so finicky, is I love to use the little foam pencil bobbers on a slip arrangement. So I'll put a little string up on the line and tighten it down, trim it off so it's just a bead up there. And then I'll put on one of these little clip-on bobbers on there. And so it'll go down and hang below the water so it doesn't ice up very fast. And then you can see a fish swim by sometimes, and it'll sit there, and just the current will move that little indicator. And so I jokingly tell all our fly fishermen here, it's just really deep nymph fishing. And
Yeah, that's a good
they
example.
look at me, and when you really look at it, that's exactly what you're doing. Is you're putting these things down that look like hellgrammites or shrimp or other crazy bugs that people have created with their printing, 3D printing stuff and casting stuff, and you get it down there, and you're basically just nymph fishing down 8, 10, 15 feet. And that's typically the range that I start searching is in about the 8 to 10 feet. And then I'll go out to the 20 to 25 feet. And seldom am I catching fish in deeper than that unless it's Quake Lake. Quake Lake, I'll catch them down there at 30 to 40 feet. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
So all these different lures and baits and things and ideas that you just gave us, you're using that on all the lakes, not just Quake Lake, but all of them as far as the way you do it. So we talked about Quake Lake. What would be the next one that you think is a prime ice fishing lake to go to in West Yellowstone?
If you got a snowmobile, it's really fun to go over to Wade Lake and Cliff Lake because they're off the trail. You're usually there, the only person on the lake.
Nice.
And the fish coming out of there are great quality, and they are just really, really good producing lakes. And we just do catch and releasing back there, and you're so remote that it's a pretty special thing to do.
Okay. And then the other one would be Hebgen then.
Hebgen. Yeah. Hebgen is just magic. It's easily accessible. There's a parking lot at the Yellowstone Holiday RV that you can just jump right out on the lake, and we do almost all of our guiding from that parking lot. And then going down to Kirkwood, you can access down in the dam area, and that's where the tournament is held at, is down in that region. Mm-hmm. And so it's in the deeper water, which you just have all the shallow water up along the edges and stuff. But that deeper water, just has different fish in it, and they cooperate quite well down there. And you just have to find the fish. You got to remember that you're drilling an 8-inch hole in a 15-mile long lake.
Yeah, yeah,
and where you drill is almost like a lottery ticket,
Mm-hmm. So,
but use your navionics. There's so many great programs. I use iBoating off my iPhone, which helps me find the bathymetric data to where these drop-offs are and stuff like that. And Hebgen's pretty unique because the whole north side of the lake dropped, 12 to 15 feet during the earthquake. And so the whole Grayling Arm didn't exist before that earthquake. So the bathymetrics that are there are kind of interesting. And sometimes you find them off a little bit, but it's close enough to get you on the fish.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we're going to take one more quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get into talking about, for those of you that have never fished Hebgen, maybe you can give some advice on maybe at least some good places to start and what to look for and that, and we'll go from there. So we'll do that right after this. Hey, I want to tell you a bit about one of the great businesses that is responsible for making this podcast possible. I'm talking about my friends at Superior Hardwoods of Montana. They're a well-established Montana company with origins starting way back to 1977. They've been proudly serving the Missoula community and, far beyond that since then. Yeah, so no matter where you're listening, they can help you. Now, again, if you have been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that some of the things Superior Hardwoods is most known for are their extraordinary flooring lines. In fact, a majority of those are manufactured right there in their lumber yard in Missoula. And speaking of flooring, they just introduced the Timeless Pre-Finish series. Now, this is a series designed to simplify the overwhelming task of remodeling and replacing the old worn-out flooring in your home. This new series allows you to effortlessly transform any room pretty much instantly. This flooring is made in America and comes in pre-finished maple, hickory, white oak, red oak, ash, and reclaimed oak. It's just beautiful. It has a superior quality sealer and matte finish to it. Now, this totals 6 coats of durable protection on the floor. But along with all their different flooring lines and their acres of reclaimed beams and lumber, they also offer fantastic products to complete your remodel. Thousands of feet of alder molding and hundreds of square feet of stunning antique paneling. Just beautiful stuff. That's going to make your home feel special to you and your family and friends every time they come see you. It's kind of amazing when you think about it, but when you work with the folks at Superior Hardwoods of Montana, you'll be able to create a look for your home that says who you really are to all who stop by. I guess what I'm trying to say is it completes your remodel project to the point that your house just doesn't have a new look or updated look to it. No, it becomes much more than that. Not just a house you live in, but it is now uniquely your home. And it'll feel that way, not just because the project is completed. No, it will feel that way every time you and your family and friends walk through the door. That, my friends, is the difference that Superior Hardwoods of Montana makes. Stop by their showroom in Missoula, Montana today if you can, or give them a call at 406-251-2272, or just visit their website. It's a great way to get to know them at superior-hardwoods.com. That's superior-hardwoods.com, and let them guide you through the woods. We are back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. Garrett Ostler is my guest, and we're talking about the West Yellowstone area. Right now, specifically talking about Hebgen Lake, which is, if you want to catch some great trout, it's kind of an ice fisherman's dream come true. And you're going to have a nice long season. Not quite ready for ice fishing yet, according to Garrett, but we're getting there. Now, for people that are listening that have never ice fished Hebgen, where would you say would be the best spot easiest to say get to, and then where would you tell them to start? I would advise you just hire Garrett as your guide, and that's going to speed the process up. I've said this so many times on this podcast. When you go to a new place, I can't stress enough that the idea of hiring a guide is excellent. Hire him for a day. I'm sure Garrett's the same way as every guide I've ever known. They don't mind teaching you and that, so that when you want to go out later, you can try it on your own. But hire them for at least a day. But a couple days I think is great, because then you get to spend some time, really learn the lake, and once you get comfortable, yeah, you can probably do it on your own. You don't have to hire a guide, but boy, it sure makes life easier. So anyway, where would you recommend they start?
Well, I think the hiring a guide is a great recommendation, because I already have an active target. I already have a Panoptics, which most people don't have. Mm-hmm. And so you have great electronics, great knowledge of the area. So you really get that. I hire on and use guides all the time. And sure. When I go up to Flathead, I went out with Chris Miskey, and well, I still don't understand that lake, but I sure could go out there and catch some fish if I went up there on my own. So it's a worthwhile investment in that to hire a guide. Here on Hebgen, the easiest and quickest place to get out on is going to the Yellowstone Holiday RV. And they have a little bay there that opens up and gets you into 18 to 30 feet of water out there in the area. And it's fished every day there. And the fish just love to come through there because they're moving up into this grayling arm that I spoke of. And so you're coming off the main lake and then going up into this other shallow arm. And so those fish are on the hunt for something to eat. And they'll come up through there, and they cooperate quite well. And, as you come up there, the easiest thing to do is talk to other fishermen. Some people have a problem with fishermen because they think they all lie. Well, I have a different policy. I tell them the truth because they think I'm lying. And there's been many a times I was out elk hunting yesterday and ran into a fellow, and he says, "Man, we had a great time up there on Hebgen. really appreciated you taking time. And I says, well, did you go out on a guide with me? He says, no, you were coming by on your snowmobile and saw that we weren't catching fish, and you coached us up, gave us a little bit of bait. I'm telling you, if I see you out there, I'm watching what's going on, and I'm helping other people out too, because the only thing better than me catching a fish is helping somebody who's out there for the first time and has never caught a fish, and then they just catch the magic. It's wonderful. And so if you're going to come up and do it on your own, finding a hand crank auger anymore is getting pretty hard, because a lot of these companies are stopping making them because they want to use the electric or propane powered or gas powered. Mm-hmm. But I have a couple of electric augers, and they just work really well. And so a person can get a hand auger, because you can always convert it to being electric and that. But have an auger. A spud's a little heavy to tote around and do things, but make sure other people are out on the ice and talk to them and see what's going on. And then you can just have the simple things are some selections of jigs and spinners and or spoons, not spinners, or even some of these jigging rapalas. I've been really doing quite well on those jigging rapalas that are horizontal floating, and then as you move them, they swim around in a circle. Those work really well. Mm-hmm. And I just go out there and drill the area, stay away from the other guys, and drill off in an area. There's no secrets as to what's going on unless you got navionics that can see a drop off or something like that you can find right on your phone and walk over to it, drill a hole. You'll be amazed how accurate that really is.
Oh, dang.
And so you just have your baits organized, a little bit of live bait, the mealworms or a night crawler, a salmon egg, or some of these new fancy scented lure plastics, that you can put on the back of those jigs. Those work real well. And you just go and find a place in the 8-10 feet, drill a hole, put it down there, jig for a while. If you're not catching anything in 20 minutes, move, and you need to be mobile. And so that's the key of not bringing a whole bunch of equipment with you. If it's really terrible weather and on your first time, you're not going to have a tent. The one thing I really coach people to do is bring a sled, because then you can take the sled and prop it up and block the wind for you. Yeah. And even the snow. And it just works really well there. And people see me all the time going like, you always turn your sled up like that? And I says, yeah, because I want to fish for a while. Yeah. And if you're not, it adds an hour to your fishing time when it's really adverse conditions. Mm-hmm. And, so augers, the gas or electric, start with a hand auger and then graduate up, because, you can buy a hand auger for probably $80, which isn't much, and they work wonderful, and it puts a little exercise. Did I say that word?
Yeah, I think I'll go for the gas or electric myself.
They do work nice, and, stay smaller. If you fish down in a 6-inch hand auger, you could probably drill through faster than the guy with his electric 8 or 10-inch. And that, so the smaller the auger, the easier it drills. Okay. So jigs, spoons, if you don't have a locator, that's okay. Take your bait to the bottom and then bring it up at about 6 inches, 8 inches, 12 inches. Start at the bottom and then just work your way up in the column as you go. And you'll be surprised how many fish you catch that are 2 to 3 feet underneath the ice, just cruising the ice. Mm-hmm. And again, you got to be careful when you don't have very much line out, because you don't have any stretch. Right. And your rod will just snap that line right off. Mm-hmm. So
now, are tip ups allowed out on Hebgen?
You can only have 2 rods on Hebgen, so you can put out a jaw jacker or a tip up, but typically tip ups won't produce here at Hebgen, because the fish are more of a finesse bite, and they come in and, I've never seen somebody catch a fish on a tip up here. Yeah. But using jaw jackers, we use the many variations of a jaw jacker all the time. Yeah. But usually just have 2 rods right out in front of you, be able to grab each one.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. As far as equipment goes, what is your kind of prime equipment that you prefer? Now, you were talking about your electronics. Talk about the electronics that you just got and why you like that.
Well, I've been operating. I use the typical fish finders that you use out on your boat and stuff. And I had a bunch of Lowrances and some hummingbirds, and found that those all work 100% accurately. I've fished with friends who have the Vexlar with the flasher units. I have a harder time reading the Vexlars, because they're in a radial arrangement, and it's hard to interpret where they are. But once you see your bait, then it's a relation thing. And so I like the typical ones that show up vertically and can do it that way. And for beginners, those are really inexpensive. You're probably into those for about $300-400 for a nice one, color and everything. And I just keep it small because the bigger the screen you have, the more batteries you got to bring. So,
right.
You got to keep it small so that you can last all day. And now I've graduated. I went up to Lowrance Active Target 1. I'm still on the Active Target 1, and it works wonderfully. And people come in and they're seeing it go, and they're like, man, this is like a video game. And my brother, who's a real avid fly fisherman, said, that is so much like dry fly fishing, seeing that fish come in and making a wiggle and seeing it change its reaction or so. And then it comes in and smacks the lure and or barely picks it up. And he just loves it. And he didn't like ice fishing before. And so this year I kept hearing about this Panoptics. You got to get a Panoptic. So I went and bought one of the new PS22s. It's a color unit with the free floating transducer that goes in the water and works just about like my Active Target. They're all very competitive, but this one worked in that 6 feet of water, and I could have it facing forward, and I could see the fish swimming right in to come and take my lure. It's amazing what you can see coming in, and so many people tell me, that should be illegal. Really?
Well,
okay. Yeah.
You can't unring that bell. I think that box is open, and I'll tell you what, it really is. I think one of the great things about it that people don't think about is I think that's going to be the thing that gets more young people into fishing, and we definitely need that. How about rods, reels? What do you use there?
Rods and reels, the only reason we use the short rods is when you're fishing in a tent that you can make the swing and connect with the fish.
Sure.
And that's the only reason you use the short rods. But they're also very convenient, to have something within 5-6 feet of you. You got a hole there and not sitting on a bucket or in a rod holder, and you can just pick it up and go. But I see a lot of people that, especially first timers that are just wanting to try this, use their regular rods. They catch fish just as good as anybody else, not in a tent.
Right.
And it's only when you get in a tent, you start whacking the top of the tent and breaking your rod and stuff. But, I see a lot of people doing that. Just use the full length rod. They're 7-foot rods. Okay. You're further away from the hole. I'm thoroughly convinced that those fish can see you stomping around and moving around on top of the hole. And if you're 7 feet away from it, you may even do better because they're not seeing some big, great blue heron hanging over them that's threatening them to do things. And especially when you're fishing in skinny water, the less than 10 feet.
Right.
And I've got some actual video to where you can see people walking on the ice, and you can see that, and you can see the fish react to it on the screen. And so it has its effects. So using a long rod, not a problem, but I just use little short ones, there's so many manufacturers, but you can get into an inexpensive ice fishing rod for probably $25 with a reel and be in the water fishing. Now, you can buy some of the more expensive ones. I've got some that are in the hundreds of dollars that I've done. I cannot say that I catch more fish on the more expensive rod. It's not like a fly rod.
Right.
There's just not enough there, but they're nice rods. And you just get the small reels, the supple rods that are graphite so that you don't break them, and you can handle the big fish when they come on. and it's really good to do. Make sure you've got good, strong line. I never fish with anything more than 6-pound test unless I'm going to like Jackson Lake or, Clark Canyon, where you have typically bigger fish. I mean, probably Georgetown, you probably want to use a little bit a larger line in the 8 to maybe some of that Magma Thin 10, or even what do they call those? The braided lines,
Right?
And
yeah,
super lines. And where those bigger fish are, you got to do that, or you're just not going to land them. But here, 4 to 6 pound is good. 2 pound, you're probably going to break fish off. These fish are so strong down here, they'll probably break you off on the 2.
Okay. So get up around 4 to 6, and you just use regular monofilament line then, or
monofilament, or sometimes the fluorocarbon is really nice, but I haven't seen anything better. And usually you're tying on a leader anyways, so that just use your fluorocarbon leader, much like you do a fly fishing. I use those little tippet rings, and I'll terminate on the tippet ring with my regular line and then tie on with fluorocarbon. And that gives me another thing that I can see on my fish finder to where the fish is getting close to my line.
About how long a leader do you use?
Probably 8 to 24 inches.
Wow, okay.
Just depends on water clarity and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so you got a pretty good list there. Anything else that you recommend that we take along if we're going to head out Hebgen or any of the other lakes there?
Well, you always need something good to sit on, and buckets are one thing. Make sure you get a fishing bucket that sits a little taller so your back doesn't kill you. I have a really favorite chair. I bought a blind chair at Cabela's for about $60, and that is so nice. It swivels. It's got a backrest on it. But I haven't invested in more of them, so I don't take it when I'm guiding. I sit on the bucket too, but having the right size bucket makes all the difference, because if you just get a regular paint bucket, it's just a little too short for an adult.
Yeah.
But the kids need the shorter bucket. So it's a good place to carry your fish out. The bucket is an all around utilitarian type thing. You put your lunch in there. You can do everything like that. And you can either sit on a toilet style or invert it. Inverting it, you just lose all your storage and keeping things dry.
Yeah.
And the key to having a great day ice fishing is remaining dry. Mm-hmm. And if you get wet, you're going home.
Yeah. That's going to end the day quick.
Yeah. So having good outerwear, the boots, waterproof, insulated boots, because you're standing on ice and that temperature goes through. And coveralls or insulated underwear, along with a good coat. I of course have good guide coats they have float stuff in there. You got to have all your safety stuff with you all the time.
Sure.
Cleats, spikes, rope, a toss rope, so that you can toss to somebody else. But the keeping warm, good gloves, good gravy. Those little chemical hand warmers.
Yep.
Are absolutely a lifesaver, and you can stick one in on the back of your hand there in your glove, and it'll keep your fingers warm. And then when you come out and handle a fish, take your hands out of your gloves, because you don't want to get your gloves wet. Get yourself wet, pick up a little snow, scrub off. That'll take most of the water off. Stick them back in your gloves and stay warm and stay fishing.
Yeah. Nothing worse than getting cold hands.
No.
So, yeah, that's imperative. As far as,
and don't go alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Do not go alone, period.
Mm-hmm.
And so find a friend. And if you get there and you don't have a friend, go out and be with somebody. Tell them what you're doing. Hey, I'm going to fish over here if you don't mind. And a lot of times they'll say, oh no, come over here,
Sure.
Be with us. We're catching fish. Ice fishing is a social event. It is not an exclusive thing. You're not going to affect anybody else unless you're fishing the same hole.
Yeah, and bottom line is, if you go alone, there's no one going to help you, and that's no good. So, just do the right safety stuff, and I'll put a link down there of just some safety instructions and things for those of you that are not as familiar with ice fishing. What about the snow out there on Hebgen and the other lakes around there? I mean, do you get a lot of snow where you got to dig through a lot of snow to get there? Or?
Yes, Hebgen has some really unique conditions. Of course, we're right by Yellowstone, and so our water in the ground is at 40 degrees. And when the springs come up out of the lake, they'll bore a hole in the top of the lake. And it'll be a small hole, or it could be 4 foot in diameter, depends on the size of the spring. These are not hot springs. They're just 40 degrees. And if we all remember, ice needs 32, right?
Right, yeah.
And so they'll bore a hole. And then because we're up here at 6,600 feet above sea level, we can get snowstorms that'll drop 2 or 3 feet in a snowstorm. Mm-hmm. And so that puts a lot of weight on the lake. Those little springs come up, and then the snow grabs the water. Snow is hygroscopic, so it just sucks all that water in, and you get a layer of slush there.
Right.
And so you'll get 8-10 inches of ice. You'll have 8 to 10 inches of water, and then you'll have 8 to 10 inches of snow at times. And it even makes it difficult for a snowmobile to get around on the lake.
Sure.
And so you just have to be really careful and stay in trails where other people have gone out, or walk on snowmobile trails. That's the wonderful thing about when we get thick enough ice. You know, I've got my sleds that I take out, and it packs down trails. And quite honestly, I'm that kind of a guy where I'll make a trail out to where these common places are that people fish.
Sure.
And that I'm just trying to do my communal responsibility of helping other people enjoy this resource.
Mm-hmm. Well, that and again, hiring a guide like Garrett, that helps you a lot in alleviating a lot of these things. How thick does the ice typically get there on Hebgen? I mean, it can get unbelievable, right?
I've had to graduate to using a 1 foot extension on my auger. So my auger's 30 inches. And if I don't have that with all that snow on top and everything like that, it's really hard to get through. So in the March timeframe, April timeframe, I'm drilling 34, 35 inches of ice with the snow. And you got to have an electric auger then, or a gas auger. And it's a workout doing it then, because you got so much resistance and having to pull the slush up and out. But that's still some really great fishing at that time. I've fished as early as Halloween and as late as May 2nd.
Wow, May 2nd.
May 2nd. And when I was out there fishing, I had the fishing game out there. They're going, "Are you sure it's safe?" No, it is not safe, but I had to do it today. And had a fish. And Ashton told me I was just plumb crazy. And but you know, we have fun, but you know, we're there as a group, and we were just out on there to absolutely just have the goal of catching a fish on May 2nd through the ice. And within 24 hours, the ice was gone. It was that sketchy. But we don't recommend doing that.
I was going to say, don't do that, what Garrett just said, but the rest of it,
Yeah. And, you know, even in fact, last year it come off a little bit earlier than that, but we were out fishing, and in the morning it locks up good. But as soon as that sun gets going, then you get all the bubbles in the ice and everything like that holds temperature. And we all know what it feels like to be behind glass with the sun shining. It really warms up fast. And the conditions can change so much that I hollered at some guys. I said, "We're leaving, and we'd like you guys to leave too." And they said, "Oh, you're that guy who was out on that thin ice. We're leaving if you're leaving." And so I've got my reputation of being a little bit crazy. I never take a chance with a guest, never.
Right. No.
But me personally, gone out to set some goals. And I know it was right there on the edge. And I don't know, you check things off like that.
Sure.
And fishing was good, but we just caught one fish and we were out of there.
Yeah.
That's kind of sketchy way it was. But I wanted to go back to the events we've got coming up.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I want to make sure we hit that before we go here. So what are some of the events that are going to be coming up, and be sure and give us some dates if you have any yet on the ice fishing tournaments too.
Yeah. So Hebgen Lake Ice Fishing Tournament. This is our 13th year of doing it. We're limited down to 75 teams that can come. Last year we had 54 teams. And so we get together this year. The primary date will be January 11th is the tournament day. So pre-fishing the day before. That's a Saturday. And then if we don't have good, safe ice by 10 days before the tournament, then we will move it back to January 25th will be the next fallback date. Mm-hmm. But we think we're going to be okay. It's proceeding good enough to where to do it. It costs you $250 to sign up for a team of 2, and we give the top 10 teams a cash prize. Then we have other prizes that we buy to, give to other teams further down. And usually everybody leaves with something, and that, but it may not be your full money back or anything like that. But, we're taking $10,000 and dividing that up. So I think the first place winners these guys out of Idaho, they took home about $4,600 between the two of them. So that's a worthwhile tournament. Sure. And we get together at the Yellowstone Beer Company in town, and we have a raffle there and stuff like that. And the raffle doesn't support the tournament. The raffle supports another great activity that we do. We have a Kids in Snow program here in town. And so kids can come up and do dog sledding. They can sled in the park. They can ride little snowmobiles in the park. They can go cross-country skiing. They can even get on a coach and ride into the park and go see Old Faithful. There's a lot of different activities on these Kids in Snow Saturdays. So on December 21st is our first one. Then on January 4th, and then February 1st and March 1st, we do it. And along with that, we do an ice fishing event. And the ice fishing event is a 2-part program. So on Friday night, we get together at the visitor center and we go through all the safety deals of ice fishing and make sure the kids are prepared. And we teach them how to tie a knot on their very own rod. And all the raffle and stuff, we work with Shedhorn Sports, and they get us some rods at a good deal. And we give each one of the first-time participants a new ice fishing rod.
Nice.
And so they come in and they have that. Clam Lures has donated us some lures this year. And we've also bought some others that will be there. And I provide all the bait. My guide service, we champion this effort. And we take out anywhere in between 25 to 30 kids on the ice all at once. So there's a bunch of volunteers that travel all the way up from the Salt Lake City area to help put this on, because it is so rewarding taking somebody out for the first time and having them catch a fish. And that's called the Kids in Snow Ice Fishing Camp. And so if you want to donate to that and help us support it, or if you want to come up and participate with us, I have 4 educational permits. And if you're fishing with a group, you don't need a fishing license because you're covered under this group license for the day.
Nice.
And so we typically fish from 9 until 12 or 1 o'clock whenever the fish quit biting. And that's kind of Hebgen Lake, from sun up until about 1 o'clock is where the most productive time is. Mm-hmm. And usually the wind comes up after that too. And I come back home and have a little cup of hot chocolate or something,
Yeah.
But
well, and
that's the premier event, I think, is the Kids in Snow things. You talk about hiring a guide. Here you go. Bring your kids. Sign up. I bring out all my fish finders. I have like 12 fish finders. And so we bring them out and we set them all up, and this place is lit up like crazy, and fish are coming in periodically. It's still fishing, and you got to do it right.
Sure.
But seeing these kids catch a fish and just glowing, seeing some of these adults catch a fish and acting like a little kid is just absolute dynamic.
Yeah.
And we just love it. And anybody who's done that, you understand where we're going with that, is that this is introducing people to it. And we just have a ton of fun. And we've done that now for about the whole time the tournament's been going. So this is 13 years of doing it, but we've expanded it to be the 4 times per year in the last 3 years. And my guide company, which is MadisonAdventures.com, that's what I do, is I champion that whole effort. And it's quite a bit of fun, quite a bit of work.
Yeah. Well, and I'll have those links set up in the podcast description for you folks, so you'll be able to click on those and click the Madison Adventures link and be able to get to Garrett and that too. So, yeah. And so as far as the regular ice tournaments, then the Kids in Snow, and then the Hebgen ice fishing tournament, any other tournaments scheduled for this year?
Well, we don't have any other fishing tournaments and stuff. There are several ski events to where the cross-country ski,
Sure. Yeah.
the Olympic team trains up here and stuff, and they come in and do it. And they have several different World Cup programs. You have some local things that they like to do. They have trivia night at the Buffalo Bar, to where people can come up and do that. We have bingo that's on Wednesdays and stuff, and you can go to the West Yellowstone Chamber of Commerce and get these links to all these different things. There's another fine thing. If you're looking for a nice romantic date, or come up, go ice fishing, and then have an evening something to do, the Parade Rest Ranch has a horse-drawn sleigh that they do. And Wendy and Quint over there run this horse-drawn sleigh, and then they have a prime rib dinner that they do after that you can schedule that in. And that is just really the cat's meow over there. They do a great job, and that's literally just across the street here, right up next to the mountain.
Yeah.
And quite magical. So there's other little things that these businesses do. And West Yellowstone's a great place to come and visit. Something free. The kids, they have a snow sled hill in the park that's lit up at night and stuff, and they can come and sled on it. So a lot of times my guests will come out and fish with me, and then they'll go in and sled. And if they're doing the second day with me, they'll come out and they're just going, we had so much fun. Our kids are so worn out. It's just a perfect holiday here in West Yellowstone. And the Bear and Wolf Discovery Center is a great little miniature zoo, top quality. They've got bears, wolves, otters, trout, everything in there for those kids to experience. And of course, if you're coming to Yellowstone to see bears during the winter, you won't see it unless you attend the Bear and Wolf Discovery Center. And your ticket there is inexpensive. I don't want to quote a price because I don't run that business.
Right.
But it's always a 2-day entry. So you can see it in the afternoon one day and come back in the morning before you head out of town, get your last little sip of Yellowstone there. But, West Yellowstone is just a happening place. We're focused on guest experiences here. All the people who are doing business want you to have a great experience. There's plenty of fine shopping in town, and the food here is just really great. We got several different restaurants and that, and it's family friendly. It's a real gem of Montana, and we're down in the very southeast corner. I tell people we're in the Buffalo Beard of Montana, down in the very tip, right there by Wyoming, by Idaho, and just really a fantastic place to come and experience Yellowstone at its finest. And I say there's a whole lot of Yellowstone just outside the park.
Yep. Yeah. West Yellowstone, in my opinion, is just probably one of the best kept wintertime secrets around, and we don't want it to be a secret anymore. You need to go do this, because
absolutely
it really is just a unique wintertime experience. So I hope everybody will do that. So Garrett, I'm going to have links to everything down in there, but again, tell us the name of your your outfitting business and all that, and then we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, you can find me at madisonadventures.com or even hebgenlakeicefishing.com, and that'll get you to me. You can see my calendar there, and you can make a booking with me. We're quite flexible with the weather conditions up here, but the trout, if you see on there, I have a Madison Adventures Facebook page too, to where I post on there as I get fishing every time I go out fishing, which there's commonly a post every day. And that is what the fishing's like. And if you want to see what I'm using, look at those pictures. The hook is still usually in their mouth or sitting there on the ground. And there's no secrets. I love people to catch fish. I am willing to help you. And if you're just out there fumbling around and I see you're not catching fish, I'm going to come visit you as long as I'm not guiding. I'm 100% committed to my guide groups when I take them out, and we have so much fun. And I've got 3 repeat guests coming in from Atlanta this year. So people are coming from across the country to come out here and fish on Hebgen Lake. So their first experience tells you that it's worth coming again.
Heck yeah. Well, I hope you folks will go out and spend some time with Garrett, because, you know, you got the idea, folks. This guy is a very friendly, helpful guy. And the cool thing is, most everybody else in West Yellowstone's just like him. They're good people and a lot of fun. So I hope you'll all get out there and spend some time with Garrett. Any last thoughts here before we check out, Garrett?
Well, you know, the only thing I can say is, you know, if you're spending time on Hebgen, you're experiencing life at its finest.
Amen to that. Garrett Ostler, thank you so much for spending time with us here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. And we got to have you back here. We'll find out what's going on. We'll keep you posted, too. So thank you, Garrett.
Thank you.
There you go, folks. That's Garrett Ostler. He is with the MadisonAdventures.com. I'll have all that information for you right there in the podcast description. You can get it all there. Go spend some time in West Yellowstone. I know you're going to love this. It's a fun spot and a great winter place to go. Until we meet again, folks, be good to each other, be safe out there, and we'll see you next time right here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Montana Outdoor Podcast. It has been brought to you in part by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. So what did you think of today's podcast? Send your questions and comments to Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com. We should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, we will see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.